Welcome to the deep dive. So if you're an ambitious learner, you know the term AGI, artificial general intelligence. It's just swimming in hype, right?
Mm.
Every big lab seems to be claiming they're on the verge,
Right.
yet the definitions they use often feel, well, a bit fuzzy, statistical,
Yeah.
almost impossible to really pin down and verify.
Yeah, and that difficulty in verification, that's really the heart of the challenge here. I mean, we've seen these incredible breakthroughs, right? Like large language models generating text that's so fluent it can fool experts.
Absolutely.
But fundamentally, these systems are still leaning heavily on statistical pattern recognition. They're amazing mimics, fantastic parrots, you could say. But are they actually, reasoning?
That's the question.
We desperately need rigorous, measurable frameworks, ways to move beyond just fluency and start assessing genuine, generalized intelligence.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to give you the researcher's shortcut. We've dug into two key complementary frameworks that are trying to tackle this crisis of definition. The first one is a high-level view. It's a matrix, basically, for tracking capabilities and also the risks involved. They call it the levels of AGI.
In the second.
The second zooms way in. It's a low-level, biologically inspired testbed called AGITB. It tries to test intelligence right down at the signal processing level, really foundational stuff.
It's a necessary dual approach, isn't it? You need the sort of 30,000-foot view for societal impact and risk, but then you also need to get into the weeds, the scientific nuts and bolts of intelligence itself.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive in then, and maybe start with why the old ways of measuring AI, well, they've just kind of fallen apart.
They really have. Take the classic Turing test. Everyone knows it. But the sources we looked at are pretty clear. It's just not sufficient anymore.
Yeah, it often ends up showing how easily humans can be fooled by fluent language, rather than proving any real machine intelligence.
For sure. And modern LLMs, some framings of the Turing test, they pass them already.
Right, but then you ask them to do some basic grounded math or maintain factual consistency in a new situation.
And they completely fall over. Spectacularly.
Which tells you something's wrong with the test, not necessarily that the AI is generally intelligent yet.
So the new frameworks had to fundamentally shift the goalposts.
Totally. Instead of getting bogged down in philosophical debates like, does it have a soul? Is it conscious? They focus on measurable, real-world outcomes. What can it do?
Okay, and the sources laid out, 6 core principles guiding this new definition? These seem really important to get right.
They are. They underpin the whole system. Let's walk through them.
All right. Principle 1, you kind of said it already. Focus on capabilities, not processes. We don't care how it arrives at the answer, just whether it can actually perform the task, potentially better than a human.
Exactly. Which leads nicely into the second principle. Focus on generality A&D performance. It's not enough to be brilliant at one tiny thing. It needs breadth and depth.
And
Third, prioritize cognitive and metacognitive tasks. So things like learning new skills, self-correction, understanding its own limitations, not just physical or robotic tasks. Those obviously contribute to generality too.
makes sense. The next 3 seem more about the practical side, policy and stuff.
Yeah. Principle 4 is crucial. Focus on potential, not deployment.
So it doesn't matter if it's not actually allowed to do something yet because of legal hurdles or safety checks. If it could do it, that capability counts towards its AGI level.
Precisely. We need to track the underlying capability development separate from deployment decisions or non-technical barriers.
Okay. And 5?
Fifth is ecological validity. Basically, test it on tasks that people actually care about in the real world. Diagnosing diseases, writing useful code, scientific discovery, not just maximizing points in some abstract game that's easy to score.
Good point. We want intelligence that's actually useful.
And finally, number 6, use levels to map the path to AGI. Think about it like the levels for self-driving cars. It gives us stages, milestones.
Okay, so those 6 principles build up to this core idea, the two-dimensional matrix. Let's break that down. Dimension 1 is performance, right? The depth.
Correct. And this is measured pretty objectively. It compares the AI's performance to human performance, specifically using percentiles of skilled adults as the benchmark.
And that gives us 5 levels.
Yep, 5 clear performance tiers. Level 1 is emerging. The AI is maybe about as good as or slightly better than an unskilled human. Basic stuff.
Okay.
Level 2 is competent. Now we're talking. The AI performs at least at the 50th percentile of skilled adults in that area. Think passing a professional exam, like the bar, or being qualified for an entry-level skilled job.
Gotcha. Then it ramps up.
It does. Level 3 is expert. That means hitting the 90th percentile of skilled adults. Seriously proficient.
90%, wow.
Level 4 is exceptional. Now you're at the 99th percentile, outperforming almost every single skilled human in that domain.
Okay, truly top tier.
And then level 5, the kind of theoretical endpoint for now, is superhuman, defined as outperforming 100% of humans, better than any human possibly could be at that task.
All right, so that's performance, the vertical axis. What's the second dimension?
The second dimension is generality, the breadth. How wide is the range of tasks where the AI achieves that specific performance level?
So it could be superhuman at chess, but that's very narrow.
Exactly. That would be level 5 performance, but narrow generality. If it hits, say, level 3 performance across a whole bunch of different cognitive domains, language, reasoning, coding, planning, then it's becoming general.
So putting it together,
Right.
where do today's best models like ChatGPT, Bard, Llama 2 actually fit on this matrix?
Well, the consensus in the sources seems to be that they're generally classified as level 1 general AI, or you could call it emerging AGI.
Emerging AGI. Why level 1 if they seem so capable sometimes?
It's the consistency and breadth. While they might flash moments of brilliance, maybe hitting level 2 competent performance on some specific narrow tasks.
Like writing a simple blog post or maybe some basic code snippets.
Right. Things they were likely heavily trained on. But then you push them just outside that comfort zone. Ask them complex math problems or demand really robust factual recall in a novel context.
And they fall back down.
Immediately. They drop back to level 1, emerging performance, or sometimes even worse. That inconsistency across a broad range of tasks is key.
So the sources are saying basically no public system today has reliably achieved level 2 general AI. That competent AGI threshold hasn't been crossed yet.
That seems to be the assessment. We aren't consistently at the 50th percentile across a sufficiently broad range of valuable cognitive tasks yet.
Okay, so the levels matrix gives us that high altitude map, tracks capability, gives us milestones, helps frame the societal picture. But you mentioned earlier, if the Turing test is flawed because LLMs are just fluent parrots, how do we actually force a system to prove it has genuine foundational intelligence, not just statistical mimicry? If the matrix shows us where we're going, what tells us if the engine is actually, real?
Excellent question. And that brings us perfectly to the second framework, the Artificial General Intelligence Testbed, or AGI-TB.
AGI-TB, right.
This is designed precisely for that, to evaluate the really foundational cognitive abilities. At the lowest level, the signal processing level, it's about forcing intelligence to emerge from the ground up, from first principles.
Okay, forecasting temporal binary sequences, signal processing level. That sounds pretty technical. Can you translate that? What is AGI-TB actually asking an AI model to do? Is it like trying to predict, a stream of ones and ears?
That's a decent way to put it. Imagine the AI has virtual sensors and actuators, just giving it streams of simple binary signals over time, on or off, 1 or 0. AGI-TB asks the model to predict the very next signal, the next tick in that sequence.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. It has to do this with raw binary data only. No pre-training allowed. No built-in understanding of symbols or language. No semantic meaning given to the signals. It's purely about learning the temporal patterns and causal structure from the signals themselves. The idea is this mimics, in a very simplified way, how biological intelligence, like in the cortex, processes raw, time-sensitive sensory data at a really fundamental level.
And this leads to what they call the Genesis test, requirement number 1.
Yes, and this one is a huge hurdle for current AI. The Genesis requirement insists the model must start from a truly unbiased initial state.
Meaning,
before it sees any data, before that first tick you mentioned, its prediction for the next input must be effectively empty or random. It cannot have any pre-programmed knowledge or structure. All understanding, all intelligence must be acquired solely through interaction with the incoming data stream. It has to build itself from scratch.
Okay, wait, so the huge models we have now, the ones writing poetry and code, they fail this instantly.
According to the principles of AGI-TB, yes, they fail right out of the gate. Think about it. Older, classical, symbolic AI, it has a fixed program written by humans. That's a massive inherent bias. In modern large language models, they're built on pre-training. They've ingested colossal amounts of text and data. That pre-training is a form of bias. It encodes the statistical structures of human language and the world as depicted in that data.
So they aren't learning from a blank slate in a totally new environment. They're just pattern matching against their training.
Essentially, yes. They can't, according to this test, learn purely from scratch in an arbitrary, unfamiliar environment without leveraging that prior training bias. They fail Genesis.
Hold on. If an LLM can sometimes hit level 2 competent performance on the other scale, but it fails this fundamental Genesis test, are we implying it's, in a way, less fundamentally intelligent than, say, a human baby who is learning the world from scratch?
From the perspective of foundational first principles learning, AGI-TB would argue yes. The Genesis test is about whether the system can autonomously develop the internal structures needed to model and predict a novel reality. It's testing the emergence of intelligence itself, not just the application of previously learned patterns.
That really changes how you think about it. It's not just about performance, but the origin of that performance.
Exactly. Emergence versus memorization, basically.
Can you give us maybe one more example? Another one of these biologically inspired constraints from AGI-TB?
Sure. A good one is requirement 6, the refractory period.
Like in neuroscience.
Precisely. In the brain, after a neuron fires, there's a brief moment when it can't fire again. It needs to reset. AGI-TB enforces a similar constraint algorithmically.
Why? What does that do?
It prevents the AI model from just getting stuck in a simple loop, like predicting 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 over and over, because it's an easy pattern. It forces the internal state to change to maintain temporal diversity. This diversity is thought to be essential for learning more complex, time-varying patterns and sequences. It stops cheap, repetitive answers.
Interesting. So it enforces a kind of computational discipline based on biology.
You could say that. And just to be clear, AGI-TB is quite different from other AI benchmark tests you might hear about, like ARC, the abstraction and reasoning corpus.
How so? ARC tests reasoning too, doesn't it?
It does. But ARC tends to assume the AI already has access to certain high-level cognitive abilities. Things like spatial reasoning, object permanence, basic causal inference. It presents problems that require using those priors.
Okay.
AGI-TB, in stark contrast, makes almost no assumptions. It treats the system like a blank slate, a tabula rasa. Intelligence has to emerge purely from figuring out the patterns in those raw temporal sequences. So ARC tests high-level mastery, while AGI-TB tests low-level foundational emergence.
Got it. Two very different philosophies for testing. Okay, so we have these two frameworks now. AGI-TB demanding this foundational emergence, and the levels matrix tracking performance and generality out in the world. How does this connect back to, well, the scary stuff, the risks?
Right. The risks.
Yeah.
And policy.
What does this structured approach tell us about potential threats and how we might manage them?
Well, the really neat thing about the levels framework is how it directly links measured capability to different types of risk. It suggests risks aren't monolithic, they scale with capability.
So when do the big risks start showing up on this scale?
The framework suggests that the move towards expert AGI, that's level 3 general AI, remember 90th percentile across broad tasks, is where significant structural risks really start to bite.
Level 3. Why specifically level 3?
Because reaching the 90th percentile of skilled human performance across many general domains likely means AI has crossed a critical threshold for widespread labor substitution.
Ah, the economic impact.
Exactly. Mass job displacement, huge economic disruption. The risk here is systemic, changing the fundamental structure of the economy and society, potentially very rapidly.
Okay, that's structural risk at level 3. What about the more existential risks, the X risks people talk about?
Those are generally associated with the higher levels. Level 4, exceptional AGI, 99th percentile, and especially level 5, artificial superintelligence, ASI, better than all humans.
And why then?
Because at those levels of capability, the potential for an AI to, say, operate autonomously in ways that might deceive or strategically outmaneuver human control becomes much more plausible. This is where concerns about alignment ensuring AI goals match human values become acutely critical.
And we're seeing companies already trying to build safety protocols around these kinds of levels, right? You mentioned Anthropic's RSP.
Yes, their responsible scaling policy is a prime example. It uses AI safety levels, ASLs, which are explicitly inspired by biosafety levels.
How do they work?
They define specific capability thresholds. If an AI model demonstrates certain potentially dangerous capabilities, like being able to significantly accelerate autonomous AI research and development itself, or showing potential for misuse in creating, say, chemical or biological threats, then achieving that capability automatically triggers a requirement to move to a higher ASL.
Like ASL 3.
Exactly. And ASL 3 mandates much stricter security, containment, and operational procedures. So the policy directly ties safety measures to the demonstrated capabilities using this leveled approach.
Okay, so capability is one thing, tracked by the matrix, but then there's autonomy, how much freedom we give the AI. How do these relate? Does higher capability automatically mean higher autonomy?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the crucial insight here is, no, not automatically. Increasing capability unlocks the potential for higher autonomy, but the actual level of autonomy deployed is a design choice.
A choice made by the developers or deployers.
Precisely. We can define different levels of autonomy too. Maybe level 0 is no AI involved. Level 1 is AI as a tool, like a spell checker. Going up to level 5, AI as an agent, acting fully autonomously to achieve goals.
So even if we had an expert AGI, level 3 system, we wouldn't necessarily just turn it loose as a level 5 autonomous agent.
Probably not, or at least not without extreme caution. Using AI as, say, a consultant, maybe autonomy level 2, where it summarizes complex information or drafts reports for human review that might be unlocked by an expert narrow AI, or maybe even just an emerging AGI, level 1 general.
But full level 5 autonomy, the AI operating independently.
That likely requires the reliability, robustness, and perhaps the self-awareness associated with exceptional AGI level 4, or even ASI level 5. You need very high confidence in its alignment and stability.
And achieving that stability, that trustworthiness for high autonomy isn't just about raw performance, is it? It's also about those metacognitive abilities we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely critical. The AI needs to know what it doesn't know. It needs to know when to stop, when to ask a human for clarification, when to flag uncertainty. Those metacognitive skills are potentially even more important than raw task performance for safe deployment at higher autonomy levels.
Right. Capability gets you the potential, but metacognition and careful design choices determine the safe level of autonomous operation.
That's the key tension for deployment, yes. Capability progresses along the AGI levels, but safety hinges on picking the right autonomy level and ensuring the AI has the self-monitoring skills needed for it.
Okay, this has been a fascinating deep dive. We've explored this essential kind of dual approach to getting a handle on AGI. On one hand, the foundational biologically grounded tests like AGI-TB demanding that intelligence truly emerges from scratch, proving it's more than just a sophisticated parrot.
Testing the roots.
And on the other hand, the comprehensive, risk-aware levels of AGI matrix, tracking the breadth and depth of actual performance in ways relevant to society and safety.
Yeah, it feels like we're finally moving the conversation, moving it away from just vague, futuristic hype and towards something more quantifiable, more scientific, with actual metrics.
Progress towards AGI, then, isn't just about hitting high scores on benchmarks that mimic human language.
No, it's also about verifying these deeper, perhaps more fundamental, maybe even biological invariants. And it's about ensuring systems can generalize reliably across many different kinds of tasks. Consistency is key.
Which brings us back to that final level in the matrix, level 5, ASI, artificial superintelligence, defined as outperforming 100% of humans. The sources hint this isn't just about mastering human skills better than us.
Right, it implies the potential for entirely non-human skills, capabilities that are fundamentally outside our own cognitive repertoire.
Like what? What kind of examples did they give?
Things like maybe analyzing complex biological signals, like brain activity, to decode thoughts directly through advanced neural interfaces, or processing such vast quantities of data that the AI gains genuine oracular abilities, making incredibly accurate, high-quality predictions about complex systems that no human mind could ever hope to grasp.
Wow. Skills we can't even properly conceive of yet.
Possibly. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If ASI involves developing skills that humans literally cannot do, which of these genuinely non-human skills do you think AGI might achieve first? And maybe even more profoundly, how would we even start to design a benchmark, a test, for a capability that fundamentally exceeds our own?
A challenging question indeed. How do you measure something you can't even perform yourself? Lots to think about there.